And hello, everybody. This is Futurecast number three. I am John Freeman, your host, your editor, your man of tricks. And today we are talking to one of my greatest friends, best friends, whatever you want to call it, at least for the last few years. No, actually, we haven't been friends for 3 years, but before that, we were great friends. And no, I'm kidding. This is Brian Graves, B. Graves, from Grave Danger Productions in wonderful sunny Mobile, Alabama, and other parts of the United States. He's a fantastic producer. He's not going to say that. He's going to be all humble and stuff. I already know, but
No, I'm pretty good.
you're okay. That's right. And
I do, I do
but
all right.
yeah, Brian and I go back a long ways. We go back to the mid '80s. We were both young kids then, and we got together. Actually, we formed a group. Well, actually, he had a group already, and they were looking for a singer, and I happened to join them, and we called that band U.S. Steel because we were metal. And I remember,
Man,
who was it? Nick? Was it
very.
Nick? Nick always doing the metal church. He was doing the metal church stuff. Remember that? I think that was his favorite band at the time or whatever. But um, so, anyways, we're going to talk a little bit with Brian and find out where he's come from. And again, this podcast is about you using your vision of how you want to get out there in music. You may be a young musician, you may be a seasoned musician, and you just never knew how to use maybe the new technology of social media, and you want to learn from some people who have made tons of mistakes, and then they've also had a lot of success. And that's usually how we learn, anyways, is from our mistakes. So, B Graves, what's up, big boy?
Not much. You got me up early in the morning today.
It's early.
Yeah.
I figure you just finished a gig and you were just like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm good.
No, I'm generally a morning person now in my old age. Not like back in the day.
And you're really not that old, but I mean,
I'm almost 50.
get out of town. Oh, that's okay. I've already joined the 50 club, and it's a wonderful thing.
Well,
Now,
I'm not complaining.
nah, there's no reason to. Okay, let's go back into time. Let's go back before before webcams, before cell phones, before the iPhone. Back when you use a rotary dial phone or a push button phone tone, and you're young Brian Graves. You're probably I don't know 5 or 6 years old. What's going on in your life right then, as far as the arts?
I drew.
Okay,
I
you were a real artist. Okay,
was an actual artist, like with a pen, crayons, and
all right.
I was pretty much into pencil drawing. I did a lot of marker stuff. You remember back? You may remember they used to have the posters that you would get, and they would be black and white, and then you would color them in.
That's right. Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was
yeah.
really into cars. I was trying to
Cars.
remember the name of the magazine popped up into popped up the other day when I was thinking of it. But I was real into like the cars. They'd have the big the big uh, like with the big blowers and everything on them. There was a certain cartoon
Oh,
genre back
yeah, yeah, yeah.
then that I
I remember that. I used to get the trading cards. It's like the monsters with the giant. They're in the giant drag racing cars with the fire out of the back and all that. It was like some kind of. Didn't they make bubble gum out of that or something like in a package? It
yeah, something
seems
like
like they did. Yeah, that stuff was really cool stuff.
real into that, into the art. I was big into Godzilla.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was into
absolutely.
monster movies. So that's pretty much what I drew. Um, and doing the cars, I would mimic what I saw in the magazines and everything, and I learned about perspective and how to do that. So pretty much from there on, I didn't really listen. I listened to music a little bit. My dad was really big into music, and I've still got his record collection, which is thousands of records
See,
that I
why
haven't
didn't
gone
I know
through yet.
about this? You still have his record collection? Where was I?
Oh
What
yeah,
happened?
yeah.
You never told anybody this stuff.
Yeah, he passed away in 2002. So, it's just one of those things I've gotten, and they've kind of been sitting in the room, and it's so massive that it would be like a major production to go through
Yeah,
it.
right.
But I know he's got some great stuff in there, some stuff that I'd like to go back and listen to. But my mom listened to music a little bit, so I used to spin the 45s and uh,
Now, because I remember you telling me this recently. Did your dad in your dad's collection? Did he have the whole ABBA suite?
He does. He was a
That
big
that is awesome.
uh, early Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Just he listened to a lot of classical. I'm sure I've got some valuable
Right.
stuff in
Right.
classical music. I remember going to visit him in the summers, and I brought my Iron Maiden albums
Right.
down,
Right.
and I'd be listening to it in there on he had a big audiophile stereo set up in there, so I'd be listening to it kind of quiet because I was kind of embarrassed. I knew he didn't really like it, and he would come in there. He's like, "Son, turn it up if you're gonna listen to that." So, so there was music around, but I never didn't even have a concept of actually playing it. I just like
Right.
this.
So you okay? So you were a pencil artist. Did you get into any kind of? Did you use any painting or anything like that?
No, no, I
Okay.
just like drawing pencil.
Do you would you buy the big books, the big plain sheets, and kind of do that, or did you do it in notebooks or?
It's just more just pencil, notebook, and sketches
Right.
here and there.
Okay. Did you ever get the human hand right? I've always heard artists. That's the biggest thing is trying to draw the human hand.
Not until about I went through a stage, probably in my late 20s, where I kind of got back into drawing, where I kind of studied that, and then again, probably when I was about 40, I started really looking into anatomy.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I was a little more interested in that. In the last several years, not to jump too far ahead, but I've gotten into doing CGI and animation type work. Um, and rigging 3D characters and
Right.
that kind of. So you got to kind of know anatomy to make those things work.
Right. Otherwise, it's going to look like some Japanese horror film, right, where people's backs.
You've heard of the uncanny valley?
Absolutely.
Something just if it's not quite right, it'll jump out. You may not know exactly what it is looking at it, but
Right.
if it's not right, it's not going to
I
work.
kind of wonder if those Japanese horror film guys, that's what happened. They just, oh look, software. Let's just change the.
They did what they could with what they had, and
Right. Right. Okay, so let's go a little forward. By the time I met you, I guess you were 16, maybe 17, and you were a very seasoned guitar player, at least from my perspective, because all of us at the same time we were listening to about the same kind of music.
yeah.
Um, uh, especially I think it was kind of the metal renaissance, maybe. I would call it the metal renaissance in that time period. Along with new wave stuff from overseas and early alternative stuff was just kind of all. There were a lot of genres back then. I mean, and unlike it's probably the same today. I probably don't pay as much attention to it, but okay. So at that time period, what got you into the guitar, and how did you first learn it? Who introduced you to it? What happened?
Well, the first time I understood that you could actually make this music on an instrument was I was living in Michigan, and we came down to visit my aunt and uncle, and my cousin could play Strutter by Kiss.
Right,
On the,
right.
now I already heard
Strutter. Yeah,
had already gotten into Kiss, but I did, still I was still playing on a tennis racket, at the time, so it was. So I came down, and he could play it, and he showed me kind of how to do it, and I was just like, whoa. And I sat in his room the whole time in there, just trying to figure out what this thing was that I had in my hand, and I could make all the sounds, and most of it was just going, just
right, right.
feeling it. And that's when I was like, whoa, this is something I want to get into.
So how old were you when that happened?
It's in ninth grade.
Okay.
Oh, no, no, no! I take that back. I take that back. Yeah, it was about ninth grade. It was about
Wow,
ninth.
that's amazing.
At the point, I didn't do any music. I was still drawing. I was doing artwork.
Yeah,
Uh, so listening to music. Listening to a lot of music, but not really having an idea that I could actually make music.
right.
After that, I got a little T15 with an electric case for
Oh
Christmas one.
man, yeah, the T15. Yes. Everybody's got their, I mean, the beginning of the beginning, your first instruments or whatever, they're just,
And the thing was, I'd started to learn a little bit about music. I was reading Hit Parader magazine, some of those, where they were talking a little about the music and everything. And I was really into Rush. So pretty much I started out playing guitar, trying to learn how to do Rush.
right. Yeah.
and um, and so that was a good learning experience. I think it was a challenge. But I was also into Ozzy, Iron Maiden, Dio, that kind of thing.
Right.
The
Right.
first song I ever learned on guitar was "Breaking the Law," "Breaking the
Oh,
Law."
man, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
remember when that first came out. I think that was on a compilation album I got for some reason. The funny thing is, it had exactly what I was talking about earlier. It had Judas Priest breaking the law. It had Adam and the Ants, Dog Eat Dog. So it was like something from England and something from America that was brand new, and some other stuff. And I was just mesmerized by the dichotomy of those two sounds. So you know what you do. You end up, I gotta go get a guitar, and then no, I've got to go get a synthesizer. I got to get both or whatever.
that's how it was. I started out on guitar, but I had a bass. A year after I started playing, so I was concurrently learning the guitar and the bass and the keyboards. On
All at the
Rush,
same time. Oh yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Well,
and
actually,
then
you were the person that probably between you and Nick Miller that got me into Rush. I already liked their stuff. They were because they were genre kind of, they would meld into different areas at the same time. They didn't kind of stick in the same mold. Well, you know
fit.
that you're a Rush aficionado and all that. But
I came in with it when on Moving Pictures was the first album
right,
that I got. It's
right.
like then I went back from there, and
To the pre stuff, yeah,
I learned pretty much every guitar, every bass part on every album except the first album. I didn't really care for the first
is
album,
that Fly
which
By
was
Night or something like that?
yeah, Fly By Night. It was real Led Zeppelin-y kind of,
Okay,
which I
yeah,
would.
right.
It was not so super progressive,
That's
and
right.
but from there on out, man, I'd sit there and I'd play the whole Hemispheres album all the way through on
Yeah.
guitar and
Oh yeah.
switch on to bass, play the whole thing on. And so I didn't have much variety going on at that time. I was pretty much just did Rush, and that's all I did.
Right. I would say that a major part of our audience, they would probably be in the same mindset in the way you were then, which is, you're mimicking the artists that you love or that you get into, and they're probably in that position. Especially today, I asked my last guest, DC Baldwin, about this, um, which is technology. In your opinion, what would you have done with all this technology today, back when you were 16, 14, 15?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I almost want to say nothing because it's so easy these days. It's almost too easy sometimes. That's hard. It's really hard to say. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you probably would have had the same drive to learn, guitar, but you would today, you could have watched all the stuff on YouTube. Obviously, whatever group
It's true.
you want to
Yeah,
pay attention to. I don't think it would have taken away from your drive or desire to play the instrument, to learn it.
maybe. I mean, I suppose if I had grown up, if that was just the norm of the day was that technology. It was a very organic thing for me. It wasn't
Right.
because everything was analog. Everything you actually had to physically do something to be able to make music or whatever. And so I'm not sure. I mean, I embrace the technology of the day.
Yeah. Well, the technology of the day was pretty great when it amp, guitar, plug it into the power,
Big muff
and
pedal.
make it. Yeah, big. Well, didn't you have one of the Black Rat pedals original?
That came later. That came later. Um,
And you probably got rid of it because they're worth a lot of money now. So there you go.
no, I still got it around, but it's
Yeah.
trash. Yeah, I eventually got a little PV Bandit 65. Um, promptly blew out my right ear. first day I had it.
Nice. I did that at a no, left ear. Sorry, at what's the guy? I'll think of it in a minute. It doesn't matter. This is your interview. It's not about me. So, okay, so you blew your ear out. Did that change your listening experience? Did it change the way you?
Didn't really start manifesting until I was in my mid 20s. I've got a pretty severe hearing loss in my right ear.
Right.
So, it's not too bad. I mean, I can still hear pretty good. But it definitely, I traced it back to that incident where I was sitting down in front of the amp and I didn't know anything about channel switching or whatever. And I had one
Right.
channel turned all the way up and I was sitting in front of it going, why isn't this making any sound? And I had my ear down in front of the speaker and I hit the button and of course, I got the guitar all the way up, the amp all the way up right there, and it pow, and
Right.
it went for days and days and days, and then it went away. And my hearing was pretty normal for a long time, but
Right.
it's progressively gotten a lot worse. So
What do you?
ear people.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
Check.
Do you use a specific kind of hearing protection? Do you use the
I use what I generally do. I think I might have I had one in my pocket earlier. I was trying to see.
because I know there was some kind of new tech they've had out here lately that's
There's a lot of nice stuff out there. Basically, what I usually use is it's kind of I don't even know if I came up with this or if somebody showed it to me, but basically, you get those foam earplugs and you kind of punch a hole in the middle and get you like a bar straw and put it through there.
right.
Basically, what you got is a foam thing with a straw through it, and it's got like so you got a small ear space to go through, so it doesn't stop your ears up.
Right.
It's a cool thing because you can make one in a bar. If you got an earplug and a straw, you just make one. So I'm doing that. I've actually got a project that I'm working on, kind of an invention that I can't go into too much detail because it's not patented yet. But
Really?
it's
What
a
are you? Oh, nobody's watching this. No big deal. What are you talking about?
no, but there's some cool stuff out there now that you can really control the sounds. I mean, there's in-ear monitoring systems, and I've messed with those, but they're just kind of a pain.
Yeah.
I like to try to keep it simple. Sometimes just I'll play through a few songs or half the first set to get a feel for it, and then just some regular old earplugs.
Right. Okay, so let's move a little forward. So you started playing Rush. You started mimicking that style, and obviously other styles at the same time. You're also learning keyboards and things like that. Um, and I also remember you became a pretty good programmer, like drum machines, things like that. Um,
Well, the thing was, we can go back just a little bit. Once I started realizing that I could play these instruments and make this sound, the next thing was I need to be able to listen to this on my tape player. So I wanted to learn how to record, and that was really almost as much a concurrent focus as playing was producing and recording, from the
right,
very beginning. I managed to get two tape decks and a little Radio Shack mixer. I would record something on one tape deck and bounce it through and add something and bounce it back and add something and bounce it back and add something. And yeah, so eventually I was like, well, I need some drums for this. And
right.
I remember some of the early drum machines. Yeah, I remember the little gray one that you had. It was about that big, and it had the little on buttons that you'd like play the. You still have it? Oh my god! No way, man. Yep, that's it.
That's it. The Yamaha. That's right. The MR10, and it still works. Believe it or not,
Really.
it still
Yeah.
works. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
In fact, that's the only thing I have left of my old gear, and I could kill myself because I had a. And you remember that? I think you remember this. I had a Sequential Circuits Pro One mono synth, which was I'm an idiot for getting rid of that, but hey, stuff happens. Speaking of which, was there anything that you had? I could have killed you after you got rid of that. Um, what was the guitar you had? It wasn't a Kramer. It was a.
See, Rich
No, 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 not that one. It's the one after that.
Charvel.
The Charvel. That's right. That's the one that flew out of the back of your car one time. I think it rolled across. I don't know, somewhere in the interstate. You had to wrap it up with tape and.
I've just gotten to where I've started taking care of my instruments, man. I've never had any really nice instruments either, so they worked out pretty good. Um,
No, I mean they work. That's the point. You're your own Frankenstein. I guess you were doing the Van Halen thing, before or whatever during the same time.
holes in it, put switches in it, and did all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. It's always a take it apart. Remember the Moog pedal that I built off my Poly 800, and I
Huh?
went in and I wired switches. I made this footboard and wired some like on off switches.
That's right.
Time
Yeah.
those keys were not velocity sensitive. They were basically just on off
Weren't they
switches.
like little red switches?
Hmm. Well, if you look at some of the early pictures of Rush, that's what he used.
He
Uh,
was doing the same thing.
like the Taurus pedals with the actual pedals
Right.
on it. He
Right.
had a board that just had those little red on off buttons.
Yeah. How did you? Where did you get the schematics to build a? I never asked you that. I just always saw that you were
I did
engineering something. I was like, oh, that's great.
took it apart and looked at it and kind of figured out how it worked.
Yeah. It's like, hey, look at those diodes. I can do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't that difficult. It was a pretty simple. It was basically each key was an on-off switch. So if you look
Right.
at where the
Right.
circuit board connects, and I figured out when you if you bridge these 2 points, the note comes on. So
Right.
so you
Right.
just so I got some ribbon cable and wired everything down to the keyboard, and then I would play the bass with the
That's
bass sync
that's
like that.
right. That's right. Actually, we were doing the. We had what did we have? You also had a tape deck. I can't remember now if it was it a 4 track? Maybe you had. Oh, I don't know. We did a bunch of background
Ever
stuff
so
on it.
the
You had
first the first one I got was that Tascam Porta 01, and
yeah the gray one, right? I think.
it was black. It was kind of a square, blocky black one. It had channels on it. The one you're thinking of is the 488. I got that later, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
No, the first one I had was like one of the first Tascam Porta studios. It was awesome. We did like the first 81 album on that. We did, I think, even that first Rec 7 stuff we did,
That's
or
right.
demo stuff before we moved over here to Mobile
That's right.
was 4 tracks. I've
Yep.
got a lot of 4 track recordings like that that sound great. Sound really good.
Yeah, they do.
And then I moved up to the 488, which was an 8 track. Same principle, still doing tracking, bouncing, tracking back.
Right. Right.
I used that up to about 97.
So let's see. How many? Do you know how many bands have you been in since you started?
Been in?
Yeah.
Not many. One, two, three, four.
Well, I mean, now you're in three, right? So
Yeah, I mean less than fewer than 10 in my whole life. I'd say.
that's
As far,
still a lot. I mean,
hell, not over 30 years.
you don't think so?
I don't think so.
And
I
you've
mean, I was
been well, and you also do.
from 1990 to 2000. I was only in one band the whole time. Well, two, another one towards the end. Not very many though.
Right.
Somebody who's been playing music full time for 30 years, not too many.
Okay. What's the? Let's see. Where is the furthest you've been playing?
Key West,
Key West. Nice.
been
Very
down there.
nice.
Yeah. Yep. I've been to Houston, Chat North, I've been to Maryville, Tennessee. That's about as far north as I've gotten. Knoxville area.
Right.
So pretty much southeast.
A lot of southeast
Yeah. Well,
and southwest. I mean, if you get to Houston, you might as well say.
yeah. Well, that was kind of a not really a great experience. It was a one off. We were with this agency, and they was it's when I was playing with Ugly Stick, and we were kind of doing a little kind of hip hop, kind of new rock stuff, and he booked us this tour of metal bars
Right. Right.
in
Right.
Houston, and they hated us. They hated us,
Really?
man.
Shock.
It's terrible. That's where the name of the second album came from.
I mean, were these guys? What were they? Were they wanting like old school metal, or were they wanting?
We didn't play metal. We played. They were wanting like
I mean, they want? Did they want the last wave of metal kind of stuff, or
yeah, like what's that band?
Three Days
Nickelback.
Grace? And,
Uh,
Track and stuff like that.
and we the closest we got to that was like Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
everything else was just kind of off the wall stuff. So anyway, that was just a one off that we went out to Houston. Before that, we didn't really go west too much. We played Mississippi a little bit,
Right.
uh, some in Louisiana. Actually, Dave Wanna played a lot in Mississippi. We played Hattiesburg, uh, Jackson, the Gulf Coast a lot.
Constantly, yeah.
So not too far. Pretty
Yeah.
much a 100-mile circle.
And okay, so because you had all this background and you got into recording and all that, then you got into, uh, well, like myself and a few other people are coming to you saying, "Hey, Brian, I want you to do my demo." So that kind of led you into the making your full studio like you have now, or I guess you started eventually. I know you were at another house one time, and
It was, yeah. I didn't start doing it full time until we moved where we are now.
yeah,
No, actually I take that back. It was a little bit before that. It was in 97 or 98. That I just, I'd been bartending and waiting tables and
right,
playing music at night, and just kind of got burned out on the whole bartending gig. I didn't even really know what I was going to do. Um, I mean, I was thinking I might be a carpenter, get into something like that.
sure,
And our old drummer Michael said, "Man, why don't you just do the studio? You know,
yeah,
you know how to do it. Just do it." And I was like, "Okay," and I did, and I ended up doing that for almost 20 years straight.
yeah. And I'm sure all your programming skills came in handy because you hit right about the time when that was a big deal. People having to program drums and
That's when people, everything was switching from analog stuff to computer based stuff.
right, right,
First, like the first couple versions of Cakewalk that were bundled with your Sound Blaster car,
right.
and you could record 4 tracks with it. Uh,
Yeah, for me it was Acid.
mhm.
It was like the first computer based sampler. It wasn't the first, but it
Well, I
was
think Acid was affiliated with Samplitude in the early days, wasn't it?
right. And I
So
got
I got into the Samplitude side of it, not so much the loops and everything, but the direct recording. Uh, and just went with that. And I've pretty much stayed with Cakewalk stuff. I still use Sonar to
yeah,
this
you were
day.
smart, very smart. Stick
It's
with
just,
something.
it's just I can run Pro Tools if I need to, but why would I? It's horrible.
I mean, when I was in Nashville, all the engineers up there, they're telling you the same stuff. I did have a group of guys though that when I was doing a development deal, they said you don't have to worry about that. It's not Pro Tools is just a tool. Again, it's a piece
Absolutely.
of equipment. Their hardware was really good at the time.
Sure.
I have to admit that. But now what have we done? Everything's going retro again. I mean, they're going back to analog tape because it sounds better, and it does. I mean, I get, and I don't know if that's. I'm still trying to figure that out. Maybe you can answer this question, being an engineer. Do you feel that when you're doing, if you do some analog tape stuff, is it the is it because you have a history with that? It's the maybe your ears understand that you've heard records in the past, like you said, your dad's giant record collection. We've got all these recordings of what we call this warm sound, right? This full sound kind of thing. Um, does that even get into your psyche at all? Or are you like, no, you know what? They're digital. If I do a digital mix and an analog mix, you're not going to know the difference.
Oh, there's definitely a difference. Absolutely a difference. The thing with digital is you don't get a lot of the effects that are inherent in the analog medium. There's a certain amount of compression,
The wow and the flutter and
big range, and it's separation is better. Um, yeah, I've actually gotten, I used to record at 44.1. I started out at 44.1, 16 bics. I'm thinking, well, that's what a CD is, and then I started listening and listening, and I've gradually pushed my sample rate and bit depth up to where I'm doing 96, 24 now.
right,
And it does, that's where you're getting closer to it. But, you got to think about an analog signal is going to be smooth like this. And, all a digital signal is breaking it up into stair steps. So the more stair steps you got, the closer it is, but it'll never actually be an analog signal, which is what we hear in natural life. So
right.
it's super close. The thing with digital is you've got to put in those artifacts that are inherent in analog, like the compression. And there's some good plugins out there these days that emulate that kind of thing pretty well. So
Right.
it's close. It's really close. Um, but no,
Well,
it's
and
definitely
then you have, I guess the other problem with today, or at least recently, you got a whole generation of people. You know, if they're in their 20s or whatever, all they've ever heard is most of their music through a
yeah,
small speaker, and
yeah,
it's been digital.
yep.
So are they now? Is their psyche or their mind set so that when they hear that, that's more appealing? Or do you believe that if they hear something else you've done, they go, "Oh my God, I've never heard that before." You know?
I don't think people really listen to music like they used to. It used to be a treat. You sit down and
Yeah,
you'd have cereal and get your chair. Like the guy in the Memorex
that's
commercial.
that's right.
Actually listen to music. I think people listen to music more these days. It's more just kind of not necessarily background, but it's not the focus. It's just something that goes along with everything else you're doing.
Right.
That's just my impression. I could be wrong about
Yeah.
that.
No. No. No.
I don't listen to music like that anymore, and I haven't in years and years and years.
Yeah.
You know, listen to music in the car. Sometimes I'll listen to music around the studio if I'm working in the yard or something like that.
Right.
But I don't. I never sit down and listen to music.
Well, maybe when you're playing.
Well, yeah,
But live. I mean, this live is just different.
sure,
It's like trying to explain to somebody uh, what a Moog synthesizer sounds like. If you got one of the original mini Moogs, or you got one of the new mini Moogs now because they just released it again. I mean, it's an unbelievable, powerful experience. You hit a low E on that keyboard and it rumbles the table. I mean, people don't understand. That's why I'm asking you a lot of those questions. Like, even when you play guitar now, are there certain amps or guitars that you just say, "Man, when I play this, it's got the feeling live." You know.
no.
Okay, that blows that. Well,
Hey, well,
on to digital, on to the future. Yeah.
let me just tell you, I've never been a big stickler for, I've got to have this kind of amp. I got to have this kind of guitar, or I've never had. I've got to have this recording system. I got to have this microphone or what. It's like you can. To me, that's not really what it's about.
Yeah.
As long as you've got good, clean technique and you're making good music, it almost doesn't even matter. You
Yeah,
know,
because the crowd really doesn't care, do they?
it's like it's somebody once told me this early on. Pointed it out that Eddie Van Halen could pick up the cheapest piece of junk guitar out there and he'd still sound like Eddie Van Halen playing it.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've done songs that played on the radio here in Mobile for years that I recorded on this remote rig in Jackson, Mississippi, with one of those little computer pencil mics.
Right, 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 right.
Programmed it with one of these keyboards and did all the vocals and everything on this little pencil mic, put it together. It used to be the morning show song here in Mobile. For years, it sounded great. It sounded fantastic.
Right.
It kind of had a real lo-fi sound to it, but it was
So
clear.
it was cool, yeah.
So it's not about the gear. People need to get over that. I mean, there's a certain factor of playability and it's got to sound decent, but
Well,
I'm
it's like yourself, okay, because we're still in that mid time of your life. Well, and we've gone a little further. When you were building all that stuff, when you built your pedal board and things like that, and that day that me and you wrapped up the light, what do you call it? The cable we wrapped up all day long. You'd spent, I don't know how long you spent, 2 weeks maybe putting that together.
yeah,
Anyways, what I mean by that is you probably have a lot of satisfaction in the things that you worked on yourself because it was a hands-on, it's
sure.
yours, nobody else, it's a one-off, you know. So
I
like
have
you say,
cabinets
yeah,
and all that stuff. I mean, I've gotten to the point now where, yeah, if I need something, I'm probably just going to go out and buy it. But yeah, you're right. To me, it's not. It's functionality. You know.
right, right. Okay, so we're up to you being a producer slash live musician slash, and I guess at this time you're starting to get into, like you said, the wireframe and doing graphic. Uh, just motion videography animation.
Yeah, I was into that. I really hadn't had a whole lot of time to do it, and honestly, the technology has kind of passed me by. I'm still running on 2008 era software
Right,
that doesn't. It still runs on Windows 10, but it's close to obsolete. I'm several builds behind.
right,
So and really, it's more of a hobby now. I really kind of did it a lot there for a while. I mean, I learned how to program, write computer programs. I learned C and C plus just so I could write tools that would help me do this animation stuff. 'Cause, if you ever watch an animated film, you start to see the list at the end of like all the animators, and it'll
oh
be
yeah,
like
yeah,
300.
right,
Like
right.
some of it's just so it's a very labor intensive process. So it's I don't know. It was a real geeky thing, man. I just love doing it and learn to sit down and automate stuff. And so I got really into that for a couple of years. The only problem is it takes up a lot of time and it didn't make it doesn't pay the
Okay, speaking of which, let's go a little
very,
bit into that paying the bills.
yeah.
Um, so, if you're a young artist today, what can you expect as far as paying the bills? Should you be more concerned? I mean, should you have a kind of a backup plan while you're pursuing your dream kind of thing, or do you believe people now go whole in and just keep firing all cylinders till you get there?
I'd say it depends. You want to have a backup plan. That's a real hard question to answer.
Well, no, again, we're just talking about just the beginning person. They've got some talent. They're doing maybe like you did. They're watching their favorite group on YouTube or Facebook Live or wherever they're doing, and they're trying to feel their way through this. Um, and of course they need a little bit of income. If they're going to be on their own a little bit. So, what do you suggest in that kind of case?
I mean, if it's something that you love, just if you're gonna do it 100%. I mean, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sit around and play music all day every day. Have a job, have a life, have you know,
There's a balance, in other words.
there is right. There absolutely is. There absolutely is. And I guess it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah,
What I would say is be versatile and diversify. If you want to sit around and play rip guitar solos all day, well, learn how to play acoustic guitar too, and maybe try to sing something. So you
right.
can go to a bar and sit around and play, and you make $150 in a night, so you can pay your rent at the end of the month,
Sure.
and then find a band that you can do whatever you want. Be versatile, and that's I guess was what I would say is don't lock yourself. All right, if I want to be a rock star, do that, but don't lock yourself just into that. You know, Make
Yes.
sure that you have different paths you
Me and
can.
DC were talking in the interview I did with him, and we came across this, and I asked him point blank. I'm asking you the same question. Um, we all have had to play in groups that you didn't particularly. It wasn't what you just loved, but do you think that helps you?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
I mean, we both came to the same conclusion because it stretches you out. It makes you work with team of people, which you're going to do.
Right.
Unless you lock yourself into a virtual world somehow. But I mean,
Well, I think a lot of times you'll hear people, especially younger players, they're like, I'm just going to do my music. I don't want to do covers. If you do covers, you're a sellout. And you know what? The reason that they're covers is because they're good songs. They, uh,
that's
they may not be exactly the songs you would write, but
right,
probably wants to listen to your your stuff. Maybe
right,
they do, maybe they don't. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with going out and playing covers. It does because it does teach you about song structure. It teaches you what works. You don't have to do that.
right.
Covers all my life. My originals don't sound like anything. They still sound like me.
Sure,
You're not
absolutely, yeah,
selling out, and that's another. I mean, if you can go out and play somebody else's tunes and make some money playing music, okay, all right. So you're not playing your songs. That's just one little aspect of what you're doing. I mean, you're still
right.
playing. You're still in front of people. You're meeting people. You're
That's
networking.
right. That's
You're
right.
building chops. You're understanding, learning song structure. You're understanding what works. You're understanding crowd response. There's so many more factors to it than just this isn't my song. I'm not going to play it. I just think that's a
Yeah,
bad ad.
Yeah,
And
those people out there, and some of you may be watching this. You are the ones that we refer to as the. You stand in the back and you complain. That's right. There, that's the look right there. And you talk about. I wouldn't play that guitar. I wouldn't play that amp. What kind of keyboard's that? He must have got that at Guitar Center. I would only buy my stuff at the vintage store. Well, congratulations. You're wonderful. There you go. Uh, that's not real. That's not the real world.
yep, yep, that's true. It's just be humble. Humility goes a long way in the music industry.
Now, speaking of which, being humble, I think all of us have gone through this, but and you don't have to get into any details, but tell me a little bit about maybe some struggles or some hard times that you had to go through, and you still had to kind of push through. Did it help your art, or did it hinder your heart, or your art, or did it slow you down, or did it maybe help you see a better perspective?
Well, honestly, the probably the hardest time that I've ever had is probably right now, just because I've got a successful recording studio business. I do have some skills outside of doing music that I could go do and do very well at. And I just don't really have the energy and drive anymore. So it's a little harder right now, just because it's not as easy. You have more responsibilities. It's not as easy to put together a group of people that can get on the same page and work towards the same goal. And
Right.
as far as like, I've had some personal issues, like when my parents passed, I had a real hard time through there. And, that's when I left Ugly Stick. And it was partially a little bit because of the band, but not really. It was mostly just because of me.
You had to,
I
yeah,
just didn't feel I didn't even do music for a little
right. You had to
while.
get
And
away and
just,
heal and think, and yeah,
so, yeah, things come and go. I've never really, it's like music is always there. There have been times when I'm like, do I even really want to do this anymore? And then I wake up the next day and all I can think about doing is going out in there and banging on the drums.
right, right, right.
It's part of you. I mean, if you're a musician, or artist or a writer, it's just something you got to do. So I've just kind of accepted it. And the days I don't feel like doing it, I don't do it.
Sure, go fishing or work on your something, work on your yard or build something or whatever.
And I tell you, the most productive I've actually been was probably the last 2 years. I was working basically a 60-hour a week managerial position. That was took up all my time and energy. But I got so much done because I'd be off, and I was like, man, I got to go out and play now. And like now, I pretty much can do whatever I want.
Right,
It's harder to get motivated in a way, because I'm in the studio a lot already, working on other people's music, and
right.
I'm playing two bands right now, so we're learning material and we're trying to book and playing every weekend. So I don't know, it comes and goes. I think it's hard to say definitively. I think if you get to a point where you're not feeling it, don't try. You can't just force it. I can't force it. I don't know. But some people
Right.
say that it's good to at least try to get something done. So sometimes I'll do that, even if I'm not feeling like it. I'll go out and try to do something. I guess it just depends. But there hasn't really been any major thing one way or another. To me, music has been pretty consistent through my whole life. I'm going to be in at least one band,
Right.
and work on my music here and there when I feel like it. And I guess I don't really have the delusions of grandeur. I don't really have a goal anymore. To me, I've shifted from being goal oriented, like I want to be at this level or do this or do that, to be more process driven.
Yeah.
I just try to make progress.
I
And I
think
try to do what I like. And
yeah.
sometimes if I just want to make a dumb little song that I'm never going to do anything with, if it's there and it's in front of me and I can do it and enjoy the process, then I do it. And I don't worry about it.
That's the purpose of this site, Future Vision. What we're doing now, the Future Cast, is to try to tell people that if you have some artistic ability, even if you just have a product, you may not even be a musician, maybe into music. You can do this today. What we're doing right now, you can push your process out there. I like the way you use that. That's pretty good. You're correct. Way back, I guess we were. trained by what we saw, the media that we had of the day, television, radio, was kind of pushing us into the direction of you have to be at this level. That's your goal. You're shooting for that level constantly instead of the fun of the process. And I heard somebody a long time ago. They said a great quote, that life is what happens in between your plans. So your plans are, oh, I gotta be here and this and that. But then, like me and you, we're talking and reminiscing, and the life happens in between all that. It's the people you meet and the things you go through and the things you learn, and you didn't realize you had this in you to go to do this, or
Well, the thing is, I've become a that's a strong point for me is that it really got it has to be about the process. And I've for a long time told people, just do what you love. If you love doing it, just do it. Don't worry about the end goal. And I've gotten even stronger on that and narrowed it down to, like I said, the process rather than the goal. For instance, so I've got a studio drum session after I get done with this.
right,
I've got to lay down some drum tracks. I'm not a drummer, but you know what? I bought a drum set about 8 years ago just to have plunk around on and whatever, and just to have something in the studio for somebody to play. And I'd go in there and I was like, all right, let's try to learn how to do this and learn how to do this. And I was like, I am terrible. I suck at this.
right,
Well, and I did. It was worthless. It was worthless up until about 2 years ago. Went in there. I was like, let me go in here and bang around on this. I was like, hey, wait a minute, I can do this. You know what I mean? If I had just focused on, all right, I've got to be a drummer, and I've got to work and do this and blah blah blah. And maybe if you want to be a drummer, that's what you should do. But at the same time, it just became part of my process to go in there, mess around, play some drums here and there. Eventually, hey, I can get paid laying down drum tracks in the studio.
that's right, right,
That's why I say diversify. You know, do different things. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like they say.
yeah,
Um, if you play guitar, pick up the bass. Learn how to play bass too. Learn how to play. Be well rounded.
right,
Because it's great to be like the very best at one particular thing. But I tell you what, if you're pretty good at a bunch of different things, you have more options. You
yeah,
know, and
yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, and also, you're hopefully I'm going to come down pretty soon, and you're going to do some demoing of
absolutely
the stuff you've got, your system, your setup. You can kind of do a little run through.
sure.
Really, what I like to do, eventually, I'm getting a few people together that are pros in the music industry and video and all that, and to get you guys to do training sessions, so we can have other people if they need to learn. Like you say, I mean, I love that. Probably one of your videos would have to be the process. Enjoy the process. How you enjoy the process, and just kind of going through some of the things you do. But also, we've been talking to Brian about hopefully eventually in the future we're going to be doing some live broadcasts from his studio, artist and himself playing, and because he's got some great music, and if he wants to throw some covers in, that's fine. Jump in there.
Only if I can play Nickelback. Sorry, not.
I mean, poor Nickelback. They just
They get it, don't
they
they?
peaked way too early. They really did. It's almost like, hey, wait, we've got two good songs. Let's stop for a while. No, let's keep going. Like, no,
Band everybody loves to hate.
I know it. I don't know what do they do about that. I mean,
You can't please everybody, man. You just do what you do.
that's right. That's right.
Just do what you do.
Well, I guess we'll kind of wrap this up. Why don't you tell everybody where you are located, and are you still doing studio sessions now, or have you are you booked up solid? You can't do.
No, no, I'm going back to doing studio work pretty much full time, and so I still play on the weekends. But yeah, I work from my house here in Midtown Mobile, Alabama. Uh, my website's gravedangerproductions.com. It's got all the pertinent information and everything. So,
Okay, good.
pretty much whenever I work,
BraveDangerProductions.com. Give you a call, and they'll hear an answering machine. No, they might. I don't know. I mean,
can
you're a
leave
busy guy, so I mean,
a voicemail message that I'll check in about 3 years. No, the best way is text or Facebook to get with me. But,
okay, on Facebook, are you just B Graves?
there's a Grave Danger Productions page,
Okay,
or you can
okay,
just go straight to the website, either one.
gotcha.
They're all interlinked. So, any kind of text media is the best way to get with me.
Right, right, like everybody today. That's it. Well, it's fantastic talking to you, man, and
Looking forward to you coming down, man. We'll definitely do some stuff. I'm
yeah,
looking getting the studio set up down here to shoot some video,
absolutely.
because we got some great talent here in Mobile, and I think we can put them on a broader platform. I think
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Most of the really, I mean, in my opinion, most really good musicians I've ever met were in Mobile. Besides, being South Mississippi, obviously. All
we
right,
got our
man.
share of them, man. All right, dude. We'll see you soon.
Good seeing you. Take
Everybody.
care.